we can find. All right, hi everybody, and you don't know this, but BL and Michael and I have been doing the hokey pokey while you've been waiting in the waiting room, and we know that as esotericists we are trying to find out what it's all about, but the hokey pokey assures us that that's what it's all about. So I'm sure we feel very gratified and somehow fulfilled knowing that now. Of course, that's before a lot of you were ever born, but if you haven't done the hokey pokey one time in your life, don't. Excuse me, I don't want to cough here and just ruin the whole thing here. Anyway, want to welcome you, and gosh, I better not press reactions. What time did this start? It started about 2 minutes ago. Okay, we're just getting started, and want to welcome you here. Backed up by Michael and BL, and say hi to Yvonne and Joe and Annette and Ario, Astra and Catherine and Kristranka and Diana, Francois and Georgina, Heike and Jesse and Joan and Karen. Apologies, Karen, I meant to let you speak earlier. Maybe you can bring it up, whatever you had in mind before. Leslie and Margot and Martine, and Shriyantra and Thomas and Tia and Vivian and Lori and Zenaidi. Welcome, everybody. And these days, because Tuya and I are figuring out what we'll do to help support the whole issue of countering disenfranchisement, the robbing, the stealing of the will of many people, because people in high positions are power hungry and don't really care about the will of others. We'll do something, but I just want to, with that in mind, humanity is not living in a liberated state. It's living in a very imprisoned state, we might say, in terms of their psyche. The human psyche is imprisoned to the tune of millions and even billions of people. And, we have to kind of eat away at that, because that's not what's meant to be. Aquarius, into which we are entering, is the great sign of liberation on the fixed cross, and yet the cross of liberation. And we want to make sure that some of this liberation into the fullness of human potential actually does occur, and we'll do our bit to help that happen. So let's just begin, if nothing else, with great invocation number 2. And, you can think in your own minds what it is that needs liberating within humanity. Make sure you turn off your mute. Or rather turn your mute on. Make sure you're muted. And then later, you can speak if you need to speak. And if this time I'm backed up, so I'll recognize, or you will be recognized. Sometimes when I'm on by myself, I miss things. Let the Lords of Liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming, save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O mighty one, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. Oh. Now, we're not maybe going to go so long tonight because we have immediately afterwards the Esoteric United Nations meeting, of which some of you are a part. It's an extra meeting. And as I say, if there are those of you who might want to be part of this with the commitment that we ask, which is an ongoing pledge to stay with the program, believe it or not, until 2026, at the end of the new group of world servers meeting in 2026. So that's still 5 years away. You know, you're welcome to come in and see what it is we're doing. We'll have some discussion on things you've discovered about your country in terms of its rays and its qualities. And we'll have a, maybe there's 1 or 2 people that are taking that pledge, and then Tuya will lead a meditation. It's not going to be a long program because we have a lot to do still tomorrow. So as I say, it's a committed group, and it's not just to wander in and out. But if you would like to give it a try and just see if it might be for you, then you're welcome to come in on our Zoom program. And wherever that link might be, I'll tell you what, Michael or BL, do you have that link? Because maybe, you know, if you want
Michael,
yeah.
Maybe we need to ask Tuya, because my understanding was,
Yeah, it's true.
it was not open to people to come look, that they must be part of the committed group.
They can
Now
come look one time. They can come look at one time, and then they are expected to be part of it. Yeah. So
Yes.
you know, you could if they want to join. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Do you
okay.
hear me? Do you
Voice
hear
out of the
me?
blue here. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So actually, well, today was supposed to be this kind of dedicated groups, or group, but because you sent for the invitation, so one can come and come along and look that if someone is interested. But then because we have the oath giving today, so then until that time one is free to be, but then we have to close it because those moments we give only for the members. And today, because of the tomorrow's responsibilities, we are not going to have this kind of normal meeting. It's going to be shorter meeting
yeah.
today.
So maybe, you know, like I say, BL or Michael, if you have the link, you can send, and people
Just posted it.
right there. Yeah, but now just do it privately to the people who request what it might. All right, let it be. But like I say, you can come one time. If it's for you, then you sign up, and otherwise, you know, we'll just go on with it with the people who are making their pledge to stay with this redemptive activity. I know it's a long haul, it's 5 years, but okay, that's what we're requiring on this one program. All right. All right. Now let's go on. And I'll do my best to say a couple of things maybe. And let's see where we are. No, we're not there. Maybe we're here. Yeah, we're here. Page 65 of the Cosmic Fire. Now, as I say, we're in a way, material aspect of the book, which is the third ray foundation of the entire book. And remember, it's very interesting that this book is written on the third ray and the first ray. It's not a second ray book, and it's a book for the initiate consciousness. So right away, we know that there's going to be a whole lot we're not going to extract here. But, you know, wherever we stand on the path, if we're interested, we will extract something. And we will, you know, eventually get into the second part of the book, which is the mammoth part of the book, and it's written about solar fire, which seems to be our major interest these days. Very few of us are the kind of scientists who will benefit, you know, even professionally from the first part of the book. That's written for the science of the future, but we're in it, okay? Now, when we get into the second part of the book, students such as we are will be in much more familiar territory. And if we ever get to the third part of the book, which is somehow maybe 100, 150 pages, and by the way, all this stuff is already written out for you in terms of commentary and video commentary at the end of the book. So you can study it in your spare time, as it were. When we get into the third part of the book, we'll really be in terra incognita. You know, we'll be in the unknown world of the spirit. But it's fascinating stuff. And meanwhile, the stanzas of Dzyan, those stanzas, well, there's so many of them, we don't even know how many, but the ones that are in the secret doctrine are not the ones that are presented in Cosmic Fire. And I've made an attempt to give some ideas about these very arcane stanzas. And I've done that in video commentary, and you'll find that on Makara. Okay. We're almost about to change sections. We're dealing with fire, you know, here, and fire is problematic. Every time I really think about what really is fire, of course, you visualize maybe some kind of flame that's orange and red and blue, and you think, well, that's fire. But is that really esoterically fire? It's a very concretized kind of example of fire. It's flame, and flame can be in a way lower than fire, or it can be higher than fire, because we are all sparks, monadic sparks, hanging from the divine flame, as it were, by the finest thread of Fohat. And then we'd have to ponder on what that means as well. So, really deep concepts. I'm going to read one of the definitions of fire, which I think is very good. And it comes from the Rays and the Initiations on page 82. And by the way, he does say here that the initiate at the third initiation, the initiate grasps what is meant when the one in whom we live and move and have our being, note that expression, is referred to as fire. Okay, now this is not just some kind of light a match and look at the flame. This is something else. The one in whom, now in whom do we live and move and have our being? Well, it kind of starts with the planetary logos, doesn't it? In terms of the planetary scheme, we are living and moving and having our being within that great being. He's still non-sacred in the planetary range of sacredness, but we are living and moving and having our being within that great planetary logos, and then further as monads within the solar logos. And beyond that point, the human monad is so minuscule that when we start to think about the cosmic logos, in whom our solar logos is a heart center, you can hardly find us anymore. What are we? Some kind of subatomic particle, and yet we live and move and have our being in that being too. But we become so diminishing by comparison that, you take us as far as the one about whom naught may be said, who is not just a cosmic logos, but a super cosmic logos. And then what are we? And yet, somehow within that great being, we are living and moving and having our being. And on it goes, with the human being diminishing in scope constantly. So, but, for practical purposes, it's good to think of our planetary logos. There we can be of some maybe tiny significance. So he said, now look what he says here. I elaborated this theme in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, and this is the point, what he says here. A book which evades understanding by all except those with initiate consciousness. So we're pretty well going to understand that this book we're studying is evading our understanding, but still we'll get something out of it, And now the definition. Fire is the sum total of that which destroys form, produces complete purity in that which is not itself, generates the warmth which lies behind all growth and is vitality itself. You know, that's a great definition. Fire is the sum total of that which destroys form, think of it, produces complete purity in that which is not itself. So when we burn on the burning ground, some kind of purity is being created, some kind of ridding ourselves of dross and things that just don't belong in what is being burned, and generates the warmth which lies behind all growth, which is vitality itself. Now, what are the three great qualities that come out of Shambhala? Just pause to think for a minute. And you'll see two of them right here. The first one is destruction. And then comes purification. 1, 2, first ray, second ray. So purity is all about the second ray. And think about the sign Virgo, which is so intent on purification, and think about the fact that at this time anyway, the majority of second ray is coming through Virgo, purification. And the third quality that comes out of it is, out of Shambhala, is organization. Can you link that with vitality? Well, maybe, because, you know, within the etheric body, the vitalization that is occurring in a very organized manner, responsive to the ray of the monad. So hence, you know, we can connect it with coming out of Shambhala. So destruction, purification, organization, and here the definition of fire. He doesn't say it's orange, he doesn't say it's red, he doesn't say it's blue, he doesn't say it's flaming. He just uses the kind of pronoun. He uses the word that. When he really doesn't want to define further, he uses the word that which. So it's a hard idea to define, but maybe we can, with our imagination, we can visualize that which is destroying, which is causing purification, you know, the ridding of dross that doesn't belong if you're going to follow the archetype. See, in the archetype, no dross. The archetype is an arrangement of factors, energies, whatever, and there's no extra stuff. There's nothing that doesn't belong. And that has a lot to do with the second ray too. It's the magnetic pulling together in a geometrical manner of that which does belong, and the elimination of that which does not belong. So you can understand now why the second ray rules a cosmic law called the law of attraction and repulsion. It gets rid of what doesn't belong. Just like the word Om, when you sound it, it attracts what does belong and gets rid of what doesn't belong. And he advises much use of the word Om. And then, you know, we can kind of organize our etheric currents and overcome what's called the veil of impulsion with all of its chaos we can overcome all that chaos with the right distribution of vitality within the etheric vehicle, highly organized. The etheric body will be highly, highly organized when we have treated it in the right way. So anyway, that's one of the ways of looking at fire. And maybe we even, I don't know, BL, if you know, but maybe we even have a compilation in the, our Ageless Wisdom compilations, which is on fire. And if we don't, we should have one that is on fire, on the subject, fire.
Michael,
Okay. Yeah, BL.
we have 12 compilations with the word fire in them. One is cold fire. One is fire, electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction. Fire of mind, fire, the mystery of electricity. In other words, we have a number of these puppies.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those popular terms. You know what I mean? Definitely. I think if you just for fun, I'm going to look it up. If you look at that word, you're going to have 1,307 references. Now that, initiation has more references than fire. The word initiation has 2,530 references, but still there's an appreciable amount of references, and it would be a big undertaking. The ones that BL read about are, let's say, part of the collection. Do we have to know about fire? Well, yes, because the candidate for initiation, the disciple, is always playing with fire and hopefully doing it in a responsible manner according to what the teacher advises, and not just playing in the usual sense. That's when you can get yourself into real trouble. So anyway, going on, or attempting to go on, the subject is fire elementals and devas. And you're going to find more information on the devas, the shining ones, as they're sometimes called, the gods. They don't tend to show up so much on the physical plane. You're going to find more of that in Cosmic Fire, the book, than in any other book that the Tibetan has written. There's some pretty good things in Letters on Occult Meditation, and as DK would say, scattered throughout my writings, because of course it's our task to read his writings and gather the scattering, and we learn thereby what is pure reason. By gathering the scattering, we learn how it all fits together, and we fulfill a requirement of the second ray, the ray of detailed unity, or the ray of the divine pattern. We complete the jigsaw and we see the divine pattern. Okay, we might now, he says, and remember, I've written all this, there's a lot of commentary here, but I've decided it's better to do it kind of spontaneously than to go back and just read what I have written. You can do that if you want. We now might briefly consider the subject of the fire elementals and devas. Remember, usually when we talk about elemental, usually we mean a being of less development than the devas, although there are lower devas, and it's, who are quite unconscious, and sometimes it's difficult to differentiate between elementals and the lower devas. consider the subject of the fire elementals, and then deal with the relation, now here we go, we're moving now, of the personality ray to the internal fire of the system in its threefold manifestation. The internal fires, we have defined them as latent fire, which is a more physical kind of fire, and radiatory fire, which is related to the etheric types of fires. They're all internal fires. And why would this, very interesting that the personality ray places its stamp upon the etheric physical body. Now think about that. The personality ray is directly connected with the etheric physical body, sometimes to such an extent that the qualities of the personality seem to show up in the etheric physical body in such a way that a person may believe that the personality ray is their physical ray, their etheric physical ray. Now, there was an individual, we can give a practical example. He had a first ray personality, and it really put its stamp on the physical nature, so that the physical nature was very strong, and it looked like maybe a first ray etheric physical nature. But of course, he didn't have a first ray physical nature. He had a third ray physical nature with a very heavy overlay, if I can use that word, of the first ray coming from the personality. Now, if I wanted to go a little further with that idea, it's the soul body, the soul nature, that puts its stamp on the astral body. So that quality, that ray is going to show up in the astral body, whatever the ray of the astral body may be. And if we continue the series, you know what's going to happen. It's the monad and its ray that shows up in the mind and colors the mind, whatever the mental ray may be. So, in any one vehicle, it's not just homogeneous in terms of the rays, like this is the only ray that's there. Other ray factors come into the picture. Matter of fact, I've sometimes thought whether we don't have atoms in our vehicles vibrating to all the 7 rays, but in descending proportion, so that one of them is the maximum presence, and then a lesser and a lesser and a lesser. And then we would tend to call the body by the ray of the strongest ray that affects the atoms of that vehicle. Now, that has yet to be proven, but it is an hypothesis. So that we have the capacity in any vehicle, maybe, to respond to any ray, except 1 or 2 of them are really prominent, and the others, dwindling, descending, and less active. Certain, okay, no, we'll just leave it. Certain facts are known in connection with the fire spirits, if so they may be termed. And remember, when we run into that word spirit, it can mean monad, but it can also mean simply a subtle being, like a breath of air, spirare, to breathe, which we don't normally detect. So the capitalization on that is going to be important. And sometimes he definitely does use the word spirit to mean monad, but that's not now. The fundamental fact that should be emphasized is that Agni, the Lord of Fire, now, maybe he's the Rajadeva Lord of the fifth plane, counting from above to below, but maybe Agni is much more than that. Agni is also the personality nature of the solar logos, consisting of a being who operates through two and a half cosmic subplanes. And I think I've showed you this before, my impression of it. I'm going to just go here and show you what I think anyway, and maybe you will see it. So here's Agni, operating on half of the cosmic mental plane, the four lower subplanes, and the entire cosmic astral plane, and the entire cosmic physical plane, because these are all, subplanes, and here are 4, here are 7, here are 7. So 18 on the 18 lower subplanes, Agni is operating 18 lower cosmic subplanes. Now, 1 and 8 is 9. And what is 9? Esoterically, 9 is the number of the third ray. And when you're looking at third ray cycles, they operate through the number 9. Is Agni related to the third ray? Yes. Agni is the third ray Brahmic being with 3 subparts. So it's third ray, first ray, third ray, second ray, third ray, third ray. So the personality nature of the solar logos, we can think of that as Agni, but it's such a high form of fire, that we can't really grasp what it is. But when it gets closer to home and operates down here on the mental plane of our local subtle world, then we can begin to grasp what it is. And the Rajadeva Lord, there are 7 of them, called Agni, operates down here on the systemic 5th subplane. See, these are subplanes which are not cosmic. Well, maybe we can consider them cosmic subplanes. Maybe we can, but they are called, when they operate in our usual life, they're just called solar planes or systemic planes. And we're familiar with mind is fire. That we begin to understand, just the way Buddhi and Indra are air, and Varuna is water, and Kashiti is earth. So these most popular or well-known of the Rajadeva lords, Indra, Agni, Varuna, and Kashiti, are operating down here on these planes, these solar planes. I know it takes a little while to, get it into our minds what the layout actually is. The fundamental fact that should be emphasized is that Agni, the Lord of Fire, rules over all the fire elementals and devas on the 3 planes of human evolution. Now, those 3 planes of human evolution are called solar planes, are called systemic planes, and we could, but we don't often do it, they are also cosmic subplanes. But he's just talking about what is fairly familiar to us: the physical, the astral, and the mental. Agni is ruling and rules over them not only on this planet called the Earth, but on the three planes in all parts of our solar system. So think about every planetary scheme. There are all of these planes going through them, and Agni is ruling over the fire elementals and devas that are found on all those planets. Now, we're these are real beings, these Raja Deva lords, and we're even told that when the planetary logos or Sanat Kumara holds a meeting, Kashiti and Varuna are invited to it. These very intelligent Deva beings, and they give their input. And they are equivalent, sometimes it says, to initiates of the 6th degree, and actually there's some references where it says they're equivalent to initiates, human initiates of even the 7th degree. So 6th or 7th. But they're found throughout the solar system. So, okay, he is one of the 7 brothers. They are Raja, Deva, Lord brothers, and they're members of a parallel kingdom. Whether they've gone through the human phase, well, they're far beyond the human phase, and what their evolution might have been, we don't know, but where they stand right now, they really are high members of a parallel kingdom. Kashiti, earth; Varuna, water; and what about Agni, fire; and Indra, air. And then we can go on and say Brahma, aether; Surya, Akasha; and Shiva, what is the element? I don't know, but obviously it's connected with the first phrase. Sea of fire is his home. So Agni is one of the 7 brothers. See, we're talking about personality now, right? We're getting ready to talk about personality. He's one of the 7 brothers, to use an expression familiar to students of the secret doctrine, who each embody one of the 7 principles. You take any entity and you can divide them, that entity, into 7 subparts, just like the beam of white light divides into the 7 colors of the spectrum. So these brothers, they are like the spirits before the throne are brothers, and they are Ray brothers, and the 7 Rajadeva lords are brothers of a different kind, and there's also another very obscure group of brothers, they use that term, called the 7 spirits of darkness. And they all have their ray assignments, and you add them up and you get 21, and then you add up the whole thing and you get the mystical number 22. So every one of these brothers, when it comes to Agni and his Raja Deva Lord brothers, they embody one of the 7 principles, who are in themselves. Now look at this. The 7 centers in the body of the cosmic Lord of fire. We're not just talking about a systemic Lord of fire. We're talking about all these Rajadeva lords who represent chakras in the cosmic Lord of fire, who's called Fohat, he's called Brahma, he's called the personality of the solar logos. He's called by all these names. He is the third aspect, and he has all of these sub-lords within him. And they are like vortices of fire, operating on different levels of vibration. You can understand that all of this is presenting to us a kind of science for the future, and maybe the very distant future, when you think about the fact that our scientists, as brilliant as they are just discovering the first ether and the second ether from below above. He is that active, fiery intelligence. You know how Agni is associated with the fire of mind. That means that in the midst of that body of fire, which we probably cannot visualize at all, is a great consciousness, a being, a consciousness, an intelligence. Now, you know, if you're looking at the Christ and he says, I am the light of the world, he's not saying, I am the body you recognize as Christ. No, he's saying, I am the light of the world. And this light, wherever it spreads within our planet, has at its core the being we call the Christ. So, you know, he actually, within the light, is this consciousness, is this being. Within the fire that we call Fohat, is this consciousness, is this being, divided first into 3 and then into 7. First 3, because every aspect of a Brahmic being will start by being divided into 3, and then comes 7. And you'll recognize the Kabbalistic division, 3 above the 7. He is that active, fiery intelligence who is the basis of the internal fires of the solar system. Whatever type of energy he is responsible for producing latent heat and radiatory heat, the 2 methods of describing the internal fires. Now, you know, I know we're stretching ourselves to go here. Okay, we are then stretching our mind to go here. And if we don't learn how to stretch our mind, it's not going to grow. On each plane, one of these brothers holds sway, and the 3 elder brothers, for always the 3 will be seen, and later the 7, who eventually merge into the primary 3. You know, the 3 absorb the 7, and then the 2 absorb the 3, and the 1 absorbs the 2, and then the ultimate sponsor, the solar logos, absorbs the 1. This is all part of the law of synthesis at the end or pralaya of any system. So on each plane, one of the 3 brothers holds sway, and the 3 elder brothers, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, rule on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th planes. Now, this is actually kind of interesting because he's calling the elder brothers goodness, he's kind of saying the elder brothers are Shiva, Brahma, and Agni, because they rule on those three planes. It's the hard line. Or the plane of Adi, that's the top plane, the sea of fire. Of Atma, and that's the place where Brahma hangs out, and of Manas, which is Agni's focus. So sometimes he throws a curveball here. I expected that the elder brothers were Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, but he's not calling Vishnu an elder brother, but only Shiva and Brahma. And then he includes Agni as an elder brother. Well, that's the way it is with constellations. Do we imagine, when we look at the constellations, that they are all of equal development in their consciousness and their powers? We should not. A constellation like Capricorn is tremendously developed, and other constellations less. When we look at the planets, do we imagine that all planets are of equal development? Hardly. It's the synthesizing planets that are of the greatest development, even though they are not yet as unfolded as some of the less developed planets, because, you know, in any system, it's the less developed planets that unfold the fastest. They don't necessarily occupy the place of high development, but they come to maturity faster. And thus it is. It appears to be that in any system of 7, you're going to have 3 that are most developed, however fast they may unfold. And, you know, thus it is with many septinates. Now, what does it say here about Atma? Atma means, as you all know, the self or the ego of an individualized center of consciousness around which all worldly experiences in their dual aspect of subjective and objective cluster and arrange themselves. Is this going to be T Subaro? Oh, this is a long one. I'm not sure we're going to find that we need to. Yeah, it's good old T Subaro again. I'll just read it and know that we could spend an hour on it. It is, as it were, one of the foci from which emerge rays of light to illumine the cosmic waters, in which also converge the rays sent back by those waters. In theosophical writing, it is called the self-conscious individuality, or the higher manas. Well, you know, Atma, he doesn't necessarily mean the atmic plane. He can mean Atma as spirit itself, which descends into the realm of higher manas. From the point of view, this point of view, you will see that the higher manas, where is found our causal body and, you know, egoic lotus, is the most important principle, or the central point, the central pivot in the middle, right, of the human constitution, or the true soul. He's really focusing on soul and how soul has the spirit, which he's calling Atma, and sometimes it's just called Atman rather than Atma, but it's the very root of spirit or monad. It's found right within the center of the causal body called the central fire or jewel in the lotus. It is the thread which ought to be caught hold of by one who wants to know the truth and lift himself out of this conditioned existence, let's just say from Saturn to Uranus. To this, it may be objected that Atma represents the seventh principle of the Theosophical Septenary, and that the Manas is far lower in that scale. Well, yeah, that did occur to one who thinks about it when reading this. But the plain answer is that the seventh principle is the ultimate state attainable by the self after crossing the ocean of conditioned existence, or samsara. Now, St. Paul had some kind of statement, and DK said nobody at the time understood it, but maybe we'll see if I paraphrase that statement, what it means and why nobody understood it. And he talked about being caught up in the third heaven as it reflects the seventh heaven. So basically what's happening there is that the home of the spirit, the ultimate home of the monad, in the sea of fire, is reflected right down here in our causal body, egoic lotus, in the realm of higher mind, towards which people like us are still striving. So, you know, we have that funny kind of phrase, I'm in heaven, I'm in seventh heaven. Well, that means as high as you can go on the cosmic physical plane. But I'm sure the people who said, I'm just in seventh heaven, have no idea, no idea what they're really talking about at all or where it came from. All right, so all these brothers are holding sway on one or other, and the three elder brothers who are operating on the plane of Adi, which is Shiva, on the plane of Atma, which is Brahma, on the plane of Manas, which is Agni. They are the elder ones. There's a whole section in Cosmic Fire where it says, well, these are the most important chains. These are the most important schemes. These are the most important globes. And sometimes you just wouldn't expect at all what he's going to tell you are the most important. But that is the kind of perspective from which this master teacher is speaking. Somehow he knows these things. And, you know, we can just, jaw drops and how does all of this knowledge in the library of Shambhala, how does it come to a master? We don't know the method, but, you know, he's got a pretty good library card and we don't have that yet. So it is urgent that we here remember that these Rajadeva lords, are fire, viewed in its third aspect, the fire of matter. Now, I've really been emphasizing that, right? There's the fire of matter, or we call it fire by friction. There is solar fire, and that's the second aspect. And there is electric fire, the first aspect. So far, those are pretty much words for us. And we're learning how to deal just a little bit with this neutral electricity, which is called solar fire. In their totality, these seven lords form the essence of the cosmic lord, called in occult books Fohat. Now that's a really important statement. And so you understand that there is a great cosmic lord, one of the major three, called Fohat, and our seven Rajadeva lords are like centers in the body of this great cosmic Devic Lord. And, you know, every time I look at this, I kind of hope that it's not as big as the last one. Anyway, footnote. Well, Fohat, or electricity, cosmic electricity basically, is an entity. What's an entity? It's a being. And it has consciousness. He is the primordial electric entity. So basically he's telling us how electricity is linked with the third aspect. He is will, he is love, wisdom, he is active intelligence, because all of these great entities, especially if they represent the third aspect of divinity, they're divided into three. So there's a will part to Fohat, there's a love wisdom part to Fohat that we call Eros, E-R-O-S, love, you know, the god of love. And he is active intelligence. He's all that. Three subdivisions of the third ray Lord. And these are all secret doctrine quotes, you know, and maybe, you know, the third edition, and maybe they mean something to us. Therefore, he is God. Well, you want to dig into that, you know. He is the active God, God the actor, who's doing a lot. And, you know, but who are we praying to when we pray to God? Pretty much, if the Christ could pray to Sanat Kumara as the Father in heaven, we're not going to be praying to the third aspect of the solar logos. And we're certainly not. It really has to be understood because scope is so poorly understood that when you pray to God, in a way, you're not praying to the ultimate God of any universe. That's just all out of proportion. And yet, strangely, you are that God. You know, finally, from the esoteric perspective, when you pray, you cannot but help pray to yourself. Who is Fohati is the sum total of the energy of the seven spirits. Well, you know, here we have cosmic Fohat looked at as being an energy which embraces the seven major planetary logoi, who are the sum total of the logos. And when the term logos is used, rather than planetary logos, we just often mean the solar Lord, the great solar logos. We mean that. When we say planetary logos, we mean that. So, you know, we begin to see why this book evades, and so does the secret doctrine in many respects, evades comprehension by anyone who does not have the initiate consciousness. And this is so in the same sense as the seven Chohans with their affiliated groups of pupils like Master K.H. Moria, Paul the Venetian, Serapis Bey, Paul the Saint Paul that we are familiar with, and the Chohan Jesus and the unnamed present Chohan of the seventh ray. These are the ones we're talking about. They form the essence or centers in the body of one of the heavenly men, one of the planetary logoi. Maybe it's our own. That's really interesting. Chohans with their ashrams form chakras in a oneness, just the way the seven Rajadeva lords form centers in the body of a great being called Agni. Now you kind of wonder, what is the ray of the being in which the Chohans are forming these centers? Which planetary logos is it? Is it Saturn? Because our Earth is the sort of physical body of a being that includes Saturn? Or is it Earth itself? Anyway, I can't answer that, but we're given a hint. And these 7 again, in their turn, form the essence of the, let's call it, solar logos, because we're moving up the scale. If Chohans and their ashrams form 7 centers in a planetary logos, major planetary logos, sacred planetary logos, then the 7 planetary logi form 7 centers in the solar logos. It stands to reason. And what does he say about Chohans? A lord or master, a high adept, an initiate who has taken more initiations than the 5 major initiations which make man a master of the wisdom. Well, we're familiar with the idea. A Chohan, at first an initiate of the 6th degree, and later there are 7th degree Chohans. And when you start trying to name beyond the 7th initiation, you get into the idea that they are called Buddhas, kind of celestial Buddhas. They are of higher rank even than the Chohans. Each of the 7 lords of fire, and I suppose we're talking about the Rajadeva lords. Let's see what we're talking about here. These 7 are the 7 differentiations of primordial electric energy. He talks a little bit about the idea of the word plane. As used in occultism, the term denotes the range or extent of some state of consciousness or of the perceptive power of a particular set of senses. It's a limitation, or the action of a particular force, or the state of matter corresponding to any of the above. That's a good definition of the word plane. So you might want to note that, footnote number 25 in Cosmic Fire. Each of the 7 lords of fire, the Rajadeva lords, are differentiated into numerous groups of fire entities, from the Deva lords of a plane, it's a hierarchy, right, down to the little salamanders of the internal furnaces. And I suppose when you're looking at a fire, campfire, whatever, to the initiate, it looks alive, and those are little salamandric lives jumping around in the flame. To the little salamanders of the internal furnaces, we are not dealing with the fiery essences of the higher planes at this stage in our discussion. Who knows what they quote unquote look like, but the higher planes, we're not dealing with them. We're right down here in the internal fires. We will only enumerate somewhat briefly some of the better known groups, some as contacted in the 3 worlds. So we're confining our inquiry. You can imagine, it gives you an idea. There are 60 billion, from some reckonings, human monads in our solar system, and 140 billion Deva monads that I suppose are already self-conscious in our solar system. And so you can imagine that given the 140 billion Deva monads who are self-conscious, the hierarchy under them is going to be huge compared to the hierarchy under the 60 billion human monads. There's a little problem about that number 60 billion. He definitely says 60 and 140. No question about it. He says it. But then when you start doing the math, there is a problem. And I won't get into it too much except to say that if 6/7 of any hierarchy, like the human hierarchy, are out of incarnation, and only 1/7 in incarnation, and we've got 8 billion people on this planet. So 8 times 7 is like 56 billion. And then 8 times 6 is 48. So billion. So we've got a problem because the Earth is eating up all the monads that normally would be distributed throughout the solar system. And there's a lot of planets out there that have its own kind of humanity, its own kind of human monads. But, you know, if that's the secret of initiation, we'll leave it to that time. Now, well, a little more. Maybe already too much. Maybe already too much. But let's at least do the fire spirits. And on the physical plane, we've got the Salamanders. You know, these are the better known groups. Those little fire elementals, as I said, and as DK has said, who can be seen by whom? Dancing in every flame, tending the fires of the hearth and the home and of the factory back in the old days. They are of the same group as the fire spirits, who can be contacted deep in the fiery bowels of the planet. You know, a big hollow earth with incandescent fire. What about the fire spirits? He differentiates. They are latent in all focal points of heat, who are themselves the essence of warmth and can be contacted in the heat of the bodily frame, whether human or animal, and who are likewise the warmth terrestrial, warmth as it exists on the earth. He's differentiating here now. Salamanders are not fire spirits, okay? Something different. The Agni Chaitans, a higher grade of fire spirits, who form a vortex of fire when viewed on a large scale, such as in volcanoes and large destructive burning. So the Manu, with his love of doing volcanoes erupting appropriately, has a lot to do with these Agni Chaitans. They are closely allied to a still more important group of Devas who form the fiery envelope of the sun. We're being given really profound occultism here. And then, now we're getting into the radiatory fire, the Pranic Elementals. Those minute fiery essences who have the ability to permeate the texture of the human body. Sometimes when you're looking at devas, you know, you think you're just looking at points of different kinds of fire in this case. They can permeate the texture of the human body, of a tree, or of all that may be found in the human, vegetable, and animal kingdom. and who blend with the fires of the microcosmic systems. So they come from the sun and they blend with some of these other fires. And what else? Certain of the Deva kingdoms. It's been pretty much elementals that we've been talking about here, who may be described as ensouling certain of the great light rays, and who, Y capital, are in themselves the essence of those rays. The ray is their body, but they are a being with consciousness. Other forms of such elemental lives and of Deva groups might be enumerated, but the above tabulation will suffice for our present purpose. How interesting is all this? You know, DK is giving us the lowdown on all these lives that we didn't even suspect exist. Salamanders, fire spirits, having to do with the body, and Agni Chaitans with big burnings, and Pranic Elementals vitalizing, and the ensoulers of light rays. Now we get into the Deva kingdom. And then, of course, we have the Astral Plane. Well, you know, I'm just tempted. I've got to do it. This is the end before we start the next section. So I'll just read it, and then maybe we'll review it next time. What about the Astral Plane? The fiery essences of this plane are more difficult for us to comprehend. Could we comprehend the things he just gave? Having not as yet the seeing eye upon that plane. They are in themselves the warmth and heat of the emotional body and the body of feeling. You know, sometimes we hear the expression, hey, more light and less heat. The heated up astral body, anger and reaction and all that, they are of a low order when upon the path of desire, and a high order when upon the path of aspiration. For the elemental is then and when transmuted into the Deva. Is it later at the fourth degree, or does it happen earlier? Their grades and ranks are many, but their names matter not, save in one instance. It may be of interest to know the appellation applied to the Devas of fire, whose part it is to tend the fire, tend the fires, which will later destroy the causal body. We need to remember that it is the upsurging or upspringing of the latent fire of matter and its merging with two other fires that causes the destruction of the causal body. These elementals and devas are called Agni Chaitans. So they are part of the destruction of the causal body. Another piece of information, very important. And in their totality are the fiery essences of Buddhi. So the higher and lower Agni Chaitans, hence their lowest manifestation is on the sixth plane, the astral, because Buddhi and the sixth plane are connected. Further information concerning these Deva lives will be found further on in the treatise, and they are dealt with at some length. Well, anyway, I've read it. We're not going to have time now to deal with it, but already it is tantalizing what he has given about just a few of the elemental and Deva groups that are found on the lowest two of our systemic planes. And that's that. Now, we haven't got a whole lot of time because we have the EUN meeting coming up. but we've got to make some progress here. And we've gone to page up to page 69, and basically this is the commentary that I've made, extensive commentary on all this stuff, written, so therefore maybe more exact than what one is able to produce off the top of one's head. But there we are, and we've come let's see. Okay, I think I went too far. And well, anyway, I'll try to fill this in about fire spirits and Agni Chaitans, and he's listed the better known groups, fire spirits, etc. And then light rays, we talked about that. And then the astral plane, we talked about that. And you don't see what I'm doing, I know. So I better make it so you do see what I'm doing. And I think this is it. Division and the personality ray. And I don't know, I think I've filled in just other references here, brought them all together. And I think so. And so that's the end, basically, of this particular extensive commentary. There's a lot in it, and I'm just going to say that this is end of commentary 1.4 and up to page 69. And I don't know when we meet again and talk about that, but anyway, there's going to be a little chance for you to respond to anything that we've talked about here. All of this is microscopic, submicroscopic. Maybe even we're entering what we now call the nano world, but it's still scientifically based and will be discovered in all their gradations. We may just say, oh, I'm dealing with emotional fire. Oh, I'm dealing with etheric physical fire or mental fire. But here are the gradations and the different functions that come under the Rajadeva Lord, who's on top of the whole thing. Okay? Now, let's see what we've got. You've got a few statements. And let's see. So maybe BL, you want to handle this?
Yes, I'm scrolling through some of the technical stuff to get to the meat. Let me see.
Is there anything really?
Sri Yantra says ray variance seems similar to astrological variances. We are a main thing, but there are many houses and distributions. Interesting.
Yeah, I think, there's always subcategories to the main category. Every, let's just say we've got our zodiac and we have ray rulers, and then we have planetary rulers, and the planets have subsidiary ray rulers, and basically we have a whole descending hierarchy of lesser and lesser lives. And it just depends on how much we think we have to know. Now the specialist of the future will have to know all of this. Whether we have to know every aspect of it, I don't know, but certainly it's interesting which elementals and what lower devas are doing what. because then we'll be able to, in a practical manner, somewhat manipulate or somewhat work with these different orders of lives when it becomes necessary, and only when it becomes necessary for service purposes to do so. Okay. Anything else here?
Yes, Catherine was trying to help you out here. She says that you just finished up reading 47. It was group program 43. And I also looking at the new calendar that we just got. It looks like the next TCF group study is going to be next week at 6 a.m.
Next TCF, and I suppose it'll be, if today is the 19th.
It's going to be the 26th.
Okay, next TCF study. Thank you, Catherine. And be 26 March of 21, and it'll be
6
will it be
a.m. 6 a.m.
GMT.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm wondering if we've switched to daylight saving time.
No,
Not yet.
According to the calendar, the times for the programs all change effective the following week. So the last week of March. Okay.
Okay.
And then they'll become 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., but that's not until the final week of March, according to.
Yeah, this is a Friday, so we're not quite there.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Okay, good. And what program did we finish with? What did she say?
We just finished with program 47.
Can't believe it. Okay, and then we start program 48.
Right.
Gosh, how these things do pile up. Okay, well, look, the point is, friends, you're learning, I'm learning in a spherical manner. It's not like it's a linear thing and we're just going along and learning one item of information after another. They all touch each other as we are learning. Whatever study group we're working with, everything is aspecting everything else. So, you can't say I'm just, or that any of us is working in a purely linear fashion. You never know what's going to be drawn in. And as you see, there's been fascinating information about the Raja Deva lords, who are basically part of the personality of the solar logos and have under them all of these lesser beings, of which DK is only naming a few of the more well-known types. So what a huge science it must be when we really start subdividing. It must be an amazing thing. And, and when he says, I'm just giving you the ABCs of occultism in a book like Cosmic Fire, which evades understanding by all except the initiate consciousness, then, it just creates a sense of awe about what there is to learn on the way to omniscience, which is one of the characteristics of the second ray under which we are studying, with plenty of third ray too, because it's cosmic fire. What else?
Okay, and then Jesse says, do you think that all these lesser beings are conscious?
Well, they're not self-conscious. I mean, even an atom is conscious, meaning responsive to other atoms and other factors in the field. So Alice Bailey would write a book called The Consciousness of the Atom, but she didn't write a book called The Self-Consciousness of the Atom. We have to wait for individualization to occur. So, in other words, when you go to high school or whatever, you take inorganic chemistry, and then you take organic chemistry. And it's like inorganic chemistry is about dead things, that don't have any consciousness or any life and all that. And that would be a mistake. Every unit of life, according to high-low zoism, is ensouled and thus responsive, hence conscious, but not aware of its response, which would require self-consciousness. We have to wait a long time before that begins to occur. But meanwhile, of course, the self-conscious monad or soul, which is sponsoring all these lesser lives, and which is the real being behind it all, like let's just say the Lord of the human kingdom, the Lord of the animal kingdom, those great beings are conscious, self-conscious, and they are responsible for the responsiveness of the lesser non-self-conscious beings within their domain. So we do have to distinguish, I think. There was an Indian scientist, I think his name was Bose, B-O-S-E, and that was the last name. And he was really studying the mineral kingdom and its consciousness. He was studying such thing as metals and the fatigue of metals, and he in other words, he was treating these things as living things and not just without soul, which would be called inanimate. So high-low zoism, which is the great theory running through theosophy, tells us every single factor is conscious. And yeah, that's right. I mean, Master Moria says, he said it in a different way. He says, talk to your machines. He didn't say talk to your computers, but he did say talk to your machines. And there is a kind of life there that can respond. So this is Vivian, right? Yeah. You want to read that, Bia?
Okay. Have we humans entrapped the elementals into our service through the use of computers, internet, etc.? Computers are being designed at such speed, soon to be quantum computers.
I have to say that in a way, yes. And DK says that in all of the writings that he has done, this is in a slightly different field, he has captured and bound many elemental lives, which will have to be released later. So if he's done that with his simple dictation, then we can say yes, that these lives are being bound for a specific purpose. Now, look, let's just say we have to know about this, but this is not the major area of contemplation. There are a lot of people who, let's say, want to study the permanent atoms. And DK says, well, don't do that excessively, because it will take you right back to an earlier stage of evolution, and it will materialize your consciousness. And we're supposed to be studying something different, even though we will learn a few things about such centers of force as the permanent atoms. I was once going to an arcane school meditation meeting long ago when I was working there in New York, and I met a guy, and he was coming to the same place. And, he just announced to me, he said, look, I'm into matter. That's what I'm into. I'm into matter. And I just really recognized a very different vibration than what so many of us are into, namely into soul. So, different people have different orientations, and DK warned us about the excessive study of the material factor. Okay, what else?
Jesse says mineral kingdom has consciousness of basic maths, or so I have received through inner hearing. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, etc.
Okay, I just don't know. That's a interesting interesting thought. And what is the mineral consciousness? Basically what DK says, it's so far removed from what is now the human consciousness that we cannot regain it, and only the specialized master can deal with it. So, I guess, it has a lot to do with how the elements of the periodic table and even other types of subatomic particles combine and disassociate. I think it's disassociate. It's all under the law of attraction and repulsion. It has to do with laws of manifestation, how things aggregate and how they de-aggregate. And that takes us right into the Buddha's idea that everything we're looking at down here are a bunch of aggregations, and we need not to become captivated by the aggregations, because they will surely de-aggregate. I think that's what's going on, principally by what we call chemical affinity. Now, you know how certain inert elements, we learn in chemistry, they just won't react with each other, okay? And other things, immediately, they interact immediately. I remember our chemistry teacher, he threw some phosphorus into water, and the whole thing was just an immediate hissing, bubbling, foaming reaction. Maybe sodium was the same way. Immediate reaction and interaction, immediate aggregation and de-aggregation. But other things are just inert. In the 8th column of the periodic table, we have various factors which are inert, and they just don't interact. So I think that has a lot to do with the basic consciousness of the mineral kingdom. I'm not sure about mathematics, but I am sure that the laws of mathematics are obeyed, so that you can only have so many electrons in an electron shell, and that's all determined by some kind of law, and it probably comes from the greater being who is supervising the lesser factors within that being's domain. But it's a whole area of specialization, and one of the scientific masters would have to get into it. What else? Anything?
No, that's all I see.
Okay, that's good too, because Tui and I have to get ready for the EUN. And as I say, it's not going to be a long meeting, because tomorrow is quite a busy day, and there's a lot to be done. So, okay, look, friends, thank you. And thank you for your help in getting me oriented here about what number's coming up here. And tomorrow in the morning is the ingress into Aries. It is the equinox. And then later we have the, what do we have? We have something. It's, what is it? Somewhere it is here. And I'm not here, weekly schedule, that'll help. And it's going to be Sun into Aries in the morning, and Mary's Annunciation Day at 7:30 p.m. GMT. The angel Gabriel came, we are told, and announced that she would, receive this child, and the church has made a huge deal out of it, but certainly the initiate Jesus was scheduled to be born in Capricorn and maybe under Virgo at that time. So we'll just go on right now, and we will not do anything else except maybe sound one Om. Om. and we'll take up the practical work of looking at your country, noticing what's there and how you can help. So thank you for being here. And we just continue offering what we call this spherical study, everything related to everything else and reciprocally. So many blessings and lots of love from all of us on the communications group. We struggle to bring you the ageless wisdom, and so you can bring it to everybody else too, you know. Whoever you can bring it to, tell them the good news, but in a way that they can assimilate it, you know, so that you speak proportionately to the consciousness of the person or the group that you are speaking to already. Bye for now, and we'll get going on EUN right away.